Times are rough under the Biden-Harris economy.
And while that is very tempting and sometimes financially the only option you have, it isn't the only option you have. They do have financing available. You can talk with them about what that looks like and then decide whether that's the right move for you. But too many times, playing Russian roulette, you put in some part that isn't quality and you can do more damage. They've seen that occur. People come in with bigger problems because they tried to fix it themselves or had somebody that they know on the side do it with a part that really isn't that solid quality of a part. And you find yourself, ironically, costing yourself even more by trying to save yourself money. A1 Custom Car Care, all of your car care needs with financing available. The administration flip-flopped on this deal that was going to take the death penalty off the table for the folks that are still alive involved in putting together the 9/11 plans. There seemed to be pretty universal condemnation of this. Other than Democrats, they were keeping their mouths shut because this was a move by their administration. And it was just such an odd, I mean, if you want to look at it through the political lens, it was bizarre timing. You were trying to portray yourself as tough. You're trying to portray yourself, particularly when it comes to crime, and when it comes to dealing with bad guys. And here, just seemingly out of the blue, giving in to the request of these terrorists who wanted the death penalty off the table. And like, yeah. Now, some were arguing that the reason the Biden administration did this is because they want to be able to shut down Gitmo. This was something that Democrats used to talk about quite often, shutting down Guantanamo Bay. But at some point, they veered off onto other things, and the closing of Gitmo was something that no longer was even talked about. You may recall it was something Obama wanted to do. It was something Obama talked about doing. The problem they had with shutting down Gitmo was that no prisons wanted to take on these terrorists. They were trying to get a number of the federal prisons to agree to the transfer, and everyone was pushing back on it. No one wanted to be responsible for it. And so one of the great goals of the Democrats under Obama of shutting down Gitmo never happened. And so some are saying that that's what this all was about. It was about expediting all of this so that ultimately you could get Gitmo completely, totally shut down, and then perhaps even as a bit of a dig to Obama, Biden could brag about doing something that Obama failed to do because of the torn relationship between the two due to the overthrowing of Biden's election. Within just a couple of days, such a monumental decision, they've completely about-faced. Lloyd Austin yanked the 9/11 plea deal, and a Democrat by the name of Representative Gregory Meeks, who is the House Foreign Affairs Committee ranking member, noted, yeah, it was because of the reaction, people, the outcome, or the outcry, rather, of people, and the families in particular. Families felt as if after decades of waiting for their day in court, that was ripped away from them. So there really was no upside unless you're the terrorist when it came to this, or, again, your goal was to figure out a way to close Gitmo for bragging points. Outside of that, there was no one really out there saying this is what we need to do. But it's just indicative of this administration that something so massive and so meaningful to so many people that it's just these decisions that should be based on reasons that don't have anything to do with the polls, that they are seemingly just, if it's well, there's an outcry about this. Well, okay, let's just undo it. I mean, it really signals that other than the desire to retain power, there's no meaning behind any decision that these people make. It's not rooted in what's good versus evil. It's not rooted in what's moral versus immoral. It's not rooted in what's good for the United States or for national security purposes. This decision was made. Then when they began to fear, they saw the backlash, the outcry that this is something that might potentially hurt them when it comes to re-election purposes, then they undo it. Like, oh, no, never mind, we'll just switcheroo it around. Another decision that has real implications and sends a message throughout the world and just complete flip-flop on it for no other reason other than the backlash and the recognition that this could harm them. Now, some people would say, well, that's the way it's supposed to be. I mean, they're listening to the people. Our justice system is not supposed to be American Idol. Our justice system is not supposed to be based off of what is it that a majority of Americans want. It's supposed to be based on law and order. And to see it treated like American Idol, in which, well, we'll make the decision that the majority of people want us to make, is not how our justice system is supposed to work, and not how the war on terrorism is supposed to work. But it is how it works when the people who are in charge and making the decisions have one goal in mind, and that is what decision is going to most likely keep us in power. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. The pro-Harris propaganda continues. There's a Newsweek piece. Republicans line up to endorse Kamala Harris. Oh, they're lining up, all of these Republicans. One of them, Adam Kinzinger, who is, he's, the male version of Liz Cheney. These are hysterical individuals that have no principles other than just absolute hatred for Trump. They're overcome by hate. I looked at the list, and other than Kinzinger, the listing of former GOP Congress members who endorse Harris are people you've never heard of, including Tom Coleman of Missouri, who declared he's an election denier, declaring in, I believe it was an op-ed. He's been out of Congress. He was elected in the 70s. He exited out in the early 90s. He wrote an op-ed piece declaring that the Trump election, it was illegitimate, and he and Pence should be impeached because it wasn't legitimate, and so he's an election denier. These people are insane. They have been driven insane by their hatred of another human being. And it's clear that there is no principle with these people, because if you cannot claim that you are a Republican who believes in border security, pro-life, strong national security, lower taxes, and then be against the person who not only is supportive of that, but actually made meaningful steps towards those that in that direction. And instead, you're going to support somebody who supports abortion up to birth, giving anyone in the entire world who makes it into this country illegally free health care at the expense of taxpayers. An administration that has taken a world in which the United States crafted peace deals in Israel or in the Middle East, and just within a few years has turned us to this flashpoint of potentially World War III. Anyone who claims that they are a Republican and would voluntarily and proudly try to move us in that direction, the Kamala Harris direction, is not a principled individual. There are individuals that are overtaken by hate. But of course, the whole point of it's propaganda. That's why the listing in a Newsweek piece about Kamala Harris, the Republicans are lining up to endorse her, are people that you've never heard of, because ultimately they're irrelevant. Bill Igo coming up next. I'm Nick Reed. Tomorrow is, sorry. It's
Thanks.
your turn to
It
do weather.
is. I'm going to do that real
I
quick.
jumped the gun.
Yeah, you did. First alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today it's going to be sunny and hot with a high near 95. Tonight clearing up with a low around 71. On Tuesday, sunny with a high near 99. That heat index value, though, it's going to reach 104. And on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 91. Now you go.
Okay. There we go. So tomorrow is the day that we will have the phone lines open starting at 6:30 for you to call in and weigh in on the election. The All You Show, all calling in until we just exhaust the lineup of calls, which oftentimes goes through the end of the show. That is sponsored by Delta Roofing. The sample ballots at KSGF.com are there. That thanks to Brad Pistol and Safe Money Radio. Of course, one of the names that is on the ballot for governor is Bill Eigel. And I want to welcome you to the show on the day before. And let's just start off, if you would. I want you to address people that find themselves in. I get these calls all the time, and I'm sure you've probably heard this stuff where people are saying, God forbid, just as long as it's not Kehoe. And so they're torn. They don't know the difference between, they think, well, Eigel and Ashker, and they're just really concerned what to do. What do you say to those folks?
Well, good morning, Nick. Thanks for having me. What I would say to those folks is I believe that Republicans in our state are looking for an anti-establishment candidate that is really going to disrupt that status quo down in Jefferson City and has a plank of ideas, a specific plank of ideas that they are going to be able to have the spine and wherewithal to enact down in Jefferson City. I'm the anti-establishment candidate in this race. Nobody has made the swamp more uncomfortable for the past 8 years than I have, and I've got a plank of ideas that I think folks have been looking for more than 2 decades in this state. Number one, I have made the commitment. I'm the only one that's going to detain and deport every single one of the more than 70,000 illegal immigrants that are in this state today, burdening the taxpayers of this state, committing violent crimes in some of our cities. I'm going to address this. It should have been addressed years ago, but of course Mike Kehoe and Mike Parson just continue to do nothing. I'm also the guy, I am the only candidate that has ever said one word about supporting a plan and making sure Missouri is the 30th state in the country that eliminates personal property tax. Under an Eigel administration, you are going to be able to own your car. If you are tired of going down to the DMV on December 1st and paying rent for the crime of owning your car, I'm asking for your vote. I am the only candidate that is going to get rid of personal property tax. So the plank of ideas that I'm talking about, I'm also the only guy that's going to not only stop the sale of our farmland to any foreign country, I'm going to follow in the footsteps of Sarah Huckabee Sanders down in Arkansas. We're going to get every square inch of ground that we've lost back. In spite of all the commercials, I am the only candidate in all 3 of those cases that have said unequivocally, I'm going to accomplish those 3 things. The other candidates are desperately trying to come up with a message, even at this late stage, but I'm the one that's going to make Missouri the envy of every other state in the union by implementing these bold ideas.
How is it that you will be able to, let's say you do get elected and the establishment's still going to be there, a lot of what it is that you are wanting to do, there are obviously some elected Republicans that would like to see those things done. They too have talked about these things, but as I've noted for some time on the show here, that the biggest obstacle to those Republicans getting those meaningful things done, like you talk about, is the Republican Party. It's not the Democrats, but we continue to be, I mean, we're mediocre Missouri. We're just kind of blah.
Yeah.
We don't get anything. And then what little, it cracks me up, and the single largest tax cut in the history of Missouri is like 0.1% if they get a revenue. I mean, it's embarrassing the way that they pat themselves on the back and act like that is something massively meaningful when it is so small compared to what other states have done with real conservative governors. But they're going to obviously fight you tooth and nail. How is it that you envision taking that on and succeeding to get that stuff done for the people of Missouri?
Yeah, so and actually you mentioned it right there. When you mentioned those other states that are doing big red conservative things, when we talk about a Tennessee or a Texas or a Florida, look, it's not that those states don't have rhinos like Missouri has, right? It's not that their legislatures don't have rhinos like Lincoln Huff that, if given half an opportunity, will betray the Republican brand at the drop of a hat. What separates Missouri from those other big red states is that those other states have a bold conservative governor that are setting a vision of what a conservative state looks like in their state capitals, and then holding all the rhinos accountable if they don't come along. But we found that they will come along once they have that leadership. Under an Eigel administration, I'm going to do what these other two candidates have not been doing and will not do in office. I'm going to, one, call on the Republicans in Jefferson City to do Republican things, and if they don't, then they'll be looking at a long time spending in special sessions all the way till Christmas next year until they start getting things done like passing personal property tax and defending our farmland. But more than that, I'm going to hold these rhinos accountable. I can tell you that in 2 years from now, under an Eigel administration, we're having a conversation about vetting. The vetting of our candidates right now. Some of our candidates are vetted. Some of our candidates are not vetted. I can tell you that we're going to hold these rhinos accountable in 2 years from now under an Eigel administration as the leader of the Republican Party. Every single individual looking for to be nominated as a Republican is going to be vetted in the state of Missouri, because we need to make sure that those that actually want to carry our label are the ones that actually share our principles and ideals. And that is, that's going to make all the heads down there in Jefferson City just explode, because the lobbyists have been the ones benefiting from the fact that these rhinos continue to betray the people that elected them by doing the special interest bidding instead of doing these big Republican ideas. So I keep calling this a reckoning. I'm the only one that's talking about delivering this kind of reckoning to the status quo, and that's why down in Jefferson City, they are terrified to see that I am tied in the polls right now with Mike Kehoe, and they're seeing the writing on the wall that their guy, Mike Kehoe, is not going to be able to get this over the finish line. So we're excited, and we're going to run through the finish.
Bill Eigel with us, running for governor. He will be on the ballot tomorrow. Some of you probably have already absentee or early voted. Any final thoughts for folks as they weigh their decision?
Yeah, I tell you, I've got a daughter, my youngest, who just graduated high school a few weeks ago. She's a 4.0 GPA student. She's beautiful. She got both of those things from her mother, Amanda, not from me, of course. But I want to try to create a Missouri where she's going to be able to find the opportunities here in the Show Me State. I mean, I know whether she's trying to run a business, whether she raises a family, whether she pursues a career, I know that she's going to be successful wherever she goes, but I want her to find that opportunity here in the Show Me State. I don't want her to have to move to Tennessee or Texas and Missouri or Florida. And if the only thing keeping us from that Missouri where she and every other daughter or son or granddaughter or grandson can find that opportunity is a bunch of these weak-kneed rhino Republicans down in Jefferson City, then I'm asking for the votes of the people of this state, because I'm going to go down there and we're going to clean some house in Jefferson City and deliver the Missouri that I know the people of the state have been looking for, because they show up every 2 years on the first Tuesday in November and demand it. So I'm excited. We're seeing a surge in momentum like we've never seen before. I'm asking for your vote tomorrow. Let's go, Missouri.
Bill Eigel, as always, pleasure, sir. And perhaps we shall talk with you soon in the future.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Have a great morning.
All right, you do the same. Springfield Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Wilder RV, all of your RV needs. It is only 85 miles north on 13, Clinton, Missouri. You may think, well, that's a long drive. Not for RVers all over the country. That is their go-to place. That's their destination place because of the not just quality and variety of recreational vehicles, but the service. You aren't getting sold to. You're not getting sold at. I don't like that. A lot of you probably don't like it. Some people may. It's not my thing. I don't like to be hovered over. And one of the ways that they hover over you at a lot of these places that will sell RVs is they keep them all locked. And you have to go get them, and it's kind of a neat little trick because then they know what you're interested in. They kind of like they're interested enough to ask me to come unlock it so they can look in it, so they can start that hard sell. Wilder RV, they leave them open. They'll ask you, what are you looking for? You got a family of 4 or it's just you? What are okay, well, over there, that area of our lot, check those out. Let us know if you see something you like. Go ahead, get inside, check them out. Open doors, lay in beds, do all of that good stuff. And you don't have somebody hovering over you, and it's part of the reason that I recommend Wilder RV. You can find them wilderrv.com, also ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements. I will be transparent, though I don't think that this is anything that is new, to declare that I find myself very worried that we're going to end up with Tax Hike Mike as governor and Liberal Lincoln Huff as lieutenant governor. Because, once again, and I state this over and over and over again, we do not have runoff primaries like so many other states do, where if you have 5 people running and nobody gets a majority of the vote, the top 2 vote getters face off against one another. That way you know that whomever it is that is on that ticket had a majority of people at some time vote for him to be on that ticket. Otherwise, what you end up with is somebody that a majority of people voted against. There are polls, and one of the latest polls, show Ashcroft and Kehoe at 26%, Eigel at 17%, and then you've got Chris Wright at 1%. We had him on just Friday. Daryl McClanahan at 7%, which many people say that Daryl McClanahan at 7%, which the vast majority of you have never even heard of. The fact that somebody with no name recognition got 7% indicates that perhaps this poll should not be trusted. But nonetheless, this is where people start to get concerned, and they see polls like this, and I can tell you from the feedback I've gotten, there are the people who are paying attention are very concerned about Kehoe winning. And they do not know that essentially for a lot of them what it boils down to is Ashcroft and or Eigel, for a lot of conservatives, without question, are far preferable to Kehoe. And while there are some people that may like Eigel more than Ashcroft, or they may like Ashcroft more than Eigel, when the prospect of a Tax Hike Mike being governor comes along, they are wanting to vote for whomever it is that they believe is going to be the one that has the best chance of winning. And the problem is the polls are all over the place. I mean, you heard Eigel mention a poll that shows him tied with Kehoe. And then you have this Missouri Scout poll that shows that no, it's Ashcroft tied with Kehoe. The money that Kehoe has and the marketing that they're doing is effective. Is it going to be enough? I firmly, without question, believe if we had runoff elections in Missouri, this is not something we wouldn't have to concern ourselves with. This is part of the reason that the establishment loves to not have runoff elections. Because when it comes to the establishment, there's generally only one establishment candidate that ends up running in a primary. Because establishment candidates wait their turn. Establishment candidates need permission, get permission. There is an order to these things. And the establishment essentially either it's just a given, a known. Kehoe lieutenant governor, and he's establishment guy, and so it just makes sense. Sometimes it's a given for the establishment. Other times there may not be an obvious establishment choice, and so these decisions are made. The phone calls are made. All right, whom is it that we are going to have an establishment? And if somebody else whose establishment says, no, I want to run, they get it, generally speaking, all figured out with only one establishment candidate on the ballot. If there's another establishment candidate that throws their hat in the ring or wants to throw their hat in the ring, then what happens is you get the phone calls made to the one that they feel isn't as establishmenty or doesn't have as good of a chance to win, and they tell, wait, we'll make sure that when it's your turn, we'll back you, or we're going to take care of you in this capacity. So these lack of runoff elections in the primary, it always benefits the establishment candidate because there's only going to be one of them, which means the anti-establishment vote gets split about everybody else. It's the reason that I have grave concerns about Lincoln Huff getting the lieutenant governorship as well. He is the big money establishment left-wing candidate. And here you have a spread of others. And it doesn't mean that all the others are necessarily going to be constitutional or conservative, but they are not the establishment-backed individuals, and so they end up splitting the vote to some degree. And so what will, in all likely, I firmly believe is going to occur, whomever ends up getting the nomination is going to be someone that a majority of people voted against. Now, if there were a runoff, that doesn't mean that they would not win the runoff necessarily, but generally speaking, in this environment in particular, they believe and recognize that establishment is not what works. It's not what sells for Republicans. Democrats, it's a whole different story. But Republicans, particularly ever since Trump made his way on the scene, when he first made his way on the scene, and then Republican voters began to break away from doing what the party told them to do in terms of whom it is they're going to support and so forth. So the system that is in place now is the one that they prefer. And, could be very pleasantly surprised. But I do have my concerns that we will end up just more of the mediocrity, more of the middle of the road. Oh, and incidentally, remember we were talking about Cops for Kehoe claiming that he's going to eliminate the state income tax altogether?
Yes.
I reached out to the campaign. They said, oh, yeah, he'll do that. I find that very, 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 very difficult to believe. If he is to get elected governor, and he does eliminate the income tax as his campaign, in an email, I have the email saying, yep, that's part of his plan, complete elimination of the state income tax, then I will be flabbergasted, but in a very, very, very positive way. I can tell you this. If he does get elected governor, this show will not let him forget that. His campaign made that promise. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. the Democrats made a posting on X that just the timing of it, I don't think it means anything. I think that people just were not thinking, but it draws attention back to the fact that Kamala Harris was not elected by anyone to be the nominee. And there are many who do not want her to be the nominee. Of course, the big favorite that people have long on the left dreamed about was yet another woman with no real accomplishments that they can list, and that's Michelle Obama. And what happened was there was a posting that was a picture of Kamala, and it evidently was back from 2008 at the Democratic National Convention, and she's like laughing. But the picture was taken when Michelle Obama was getting ready to take the stage or had taken the stage to speak at the DNC. And so everyone had been given these big signs that say Michelle. And so the picture of Kamala, and it says, "Who's excited?" And she's surrounded by people holding up Michelle signs. And given the entire process in which they overturned the Democrat voters' elections in 50 states that voted for Joe Biden, they rigged the convention so that nobody could challenge her at the convention itself by having a virtual roll call done so that those delegates would already have her locked in as the candidate. She didn't get a single electoral vote or a single delegate vote. She didn't win anything. This is unprecedented, especially for the party that defends democracy. But then whenever you post a picture and it's like, who's excited, and there's Kamala, but it's a sea of people holding Michelle signs. I mean, it just couldn't be any more perfect of a screw up. Of course, some believe that it isn't a screw up as much of a display, a very passive aggressive display of unhappiness by somebody, whomever it was that made the posting. I want a great homeloan.com for all of your home loan needs, or perhaps refinancing. Is this a good time to do it? Should you wait? Should you wait to see how the election turns out? I don't know how to answer those questions. I don't know the right answer for those questions, but I can tell you that when it comes to getting the answers to those questions, I want a great homeloan.com. The Carrickers, their team, they're going to know just as good, if not better, than anyone else when it comes to what is going on, what you should wait for, what you shouldn't wait for. And some of that, it's not one size fits all. It's going to depend on your particular situation. And do not, I would just recommend, sit back and base your decision off of what people are telling you on the internet or even what the mainstream media tells you, because I know this will come as a huge shock. Sometimes they don't know what they're talking about. So for any of those questions, I want a great homeloan.com, because you do. Last chance for your chance to win tickets. See Barry Manilow as he will be performing at Great Southern Bank Arena. That is coming up a few weeks from now, Saturday, August 24th. Go to ksgf.com, your last chance to win tickets to see old Barry in concert. His last concert in Spring. I wonder if he's ever even has he performed in Springfield before? I don't know.
I bet you can
either.
look that up.
Should have asked when we had him on the show. Like maybe he would remember. I don't know.
Maybe.
You do so many concerts throughout your life. Like, I have no idea. I don't know. A couple of questions on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. One of the let's see here. Let me go switch over to the saved messages. One of the questions was asking about how we get runoff primaries. Is it a Republican Party thing or a state law thing? Ultimately, because the political parties decided at some point they wanted the state involved, I believe that it's state law that makes those decisions. So you're talking about the people in charge. Well, who benefits from not having a runoff primary? Incumbents. They benefit. And what, aside from being establishment, oftentimes, not always, because you have, like Mike Moon, clearly is not an establishment candidate. He's running against someone that most people would consider to be establishment, or somebody's running against him. Mike Moon clearly, he's the one. If there's one member that is constitutional and constitutionally minded, it is Mike Moon. I'm not saying that there aren't others to some degree, but Mike Moon clearly, no questions about that. So it isn't that every single person running for re-election is establishment, but ultimately it would take a majority, as I understand it, of those in the legislature, and then believe that it would have to go to the governor, get signed. Well, you're talking about incumbents, and the way that having no runoff benefits the incumbent is, and this gets done, it's happened right here, you have the establishment candidate running, and they recruit. If there is a challenger that is a non-establishment challenger, they recruit other people to run as non-establishment challengers as well, in order to split that vote. Now, they may not directly do it, but the forces that want the establishment candidate, they will recruit other, and they don't tell the person who's recruited, this is your purpose. They make them believe that they're really being supported, they're really being backed, and they do get out there and support them and back them, but it's to split that vote. So you are relying on the people who benefit from not having runoff elections to change our system to have runoff elections. This is why it does not happen. There's another text. You should go back and see how Rush Limbaugh was taught a lesson by his own accountant about state income tax. Pay more taxes, and states that don't have state income tax, you pay more tax in states that don't have a state income tax. All right, it's a little bit almost Kamala Harris word salad-ish there. The point being, what this person is trying to relay is that if states don't have state income taxes, you end up paying more taxes. Well, I don't know that that's always the case, but there is truth to it. I mean, you are always paying some form of taxes. The income tax, though, is different for a couple of reasons. One, and some people may believe this, maybe you don't believe it, but I'm telling you it's true, because I've talked to people who, when it comes to deciding, oftentimes if they are weighing a couple of different job options and they are trying to determine where it is that they're going to move their family, that is a deciding factor for a lot of people. If they are able to go to a state that has no state income tax, versus one that has 7, 8% or 5% or whatever the percentage, that it may not be the ultimate end-all be-all, but it certainly does play into that decision. So it can bring more people that want to work, which then in turn pay taxes, to your state. That's now not everyone, but some people do factor that in. Secondly, for many people, and I happen to fall into this category, excuse me, it is a poor form of taxation because you are taking from somebody their private property, which is their income, just because they have it, not because of any action they've taken. With a sales tax, you're paying the taxes because you decided, I'm going to go out and purchase something. And so in making that decision, you are also making the decision to pay those taxes. But when it comes to making your income, you don't have such a, you've got to make an income unless you're just going to leech off of other taxpayers. And so it is the taking of private property. And incidentally, prior to Congress stepping in and changing the law, that's what the Supreme Court had determined at one point. You cannot have income tax. It's unconstitutional because the government can't just come in and take something from you just because they want to. So this is when they, the government changed, constitutionally speaking, the way that we do things so that the government could then come in and take away your private property because you have it, because you work. Now, for some people, it may not make any difference whatsoever, whether, philosophically, whether they're taking it out of your paycheck or taking it when you make the decision to make a purchase. But for a lot of people, it does. Also, if you believe that rich people should pay more in taxes, instead of having it be income tax, but heavier on the tax for purchases, sales tax, then by default, rich people, because they spend more money, are going to pay more in taxes. So arguably, people who want the rich to pay more in taxes should support a non-state income tax situation where instead the taxes are put on purchases. Now, there's just some differences there. I don't know if you've seen What Time Is It? Okay, I'm trying to be mindful here. There is a New Yorker expose that is upcoming, unless it's already been released, on RFK Jr. He is evidently a bit concerned about it. It's going to focus on things in which he is expecting to be apologizing, everything from womanizing to a prank that he played with a dead bear. And what is interesting about this is it's getting all of this play as if it's something that is potentially damaging to RFK Jr. I happen to think it's actually pretty hilarious. And to me, it paints him as kind of a normal guy with a funny sense of humor. There's audio of him telling this story. It looks like he's in his home or someone else's home. And to all people, Roseanne Barr is the one that he's telling this story to. There are other people in the kitchen as well, but because of the shot of him, you can see her standing there drinking some coffee while listening to the story. But I thought I'd play the audio coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk at text line 447 KSGF. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 95. Tonight clear with a low around 71. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 99, but those heat index values, they're going to reach close to 104. And on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 91.
There are a couple of video/audio bits that are making the rounds with RFK Jr. One of them, which he's apologized for, which I'm not really sure why he apologized. It's a phone call he's taking from Donald Trump, apparently the day after Trump was shot. And the video started, they're talking about vaccines and then just out of context, not really necessarily a whole lot of substance, but there was some filming that was going on at the time, and then someone released the video, and I don't know. The implication here is that perhaps they were collaborating in some capacity, or that RFK Jr. was trying to potentially get some slot within the Trump administration if Trump gets elected president. It was the day after his assassination, so I could see it simply being potentially a phone call, particularly given that two of his father and uncle both were assassinated, and given the assassination threats he's come under, placing that sort of phone call to Trump. But I don't know. But he's apologized for that, and he said he's mortified that it leaked out. I don't understand what the big deal is on it, but nonetheless. Now, there's another video, and this is what, oddly enough, has been getting so much attention, and it is in which RFK Jr., he's in a kitchen. He's just sitting there telling a story, and you can hear there are numerous people that are there, but the one person that you can see, because she's in frame for much of it, it's Roseanne Barr, standing there drinking a cup of coffee, it looks like, while he's telling this story. And this story is getting a lot of attention, and you get the sense that it is supposed to be something that paints him in a very negative light. And it has to do with a dead bear and a prank that he played in Central Park. And he tells this story here. It's only about 3 minutes long. When I heard him tell this story, I thought, this is actually really funny. I don't know. Maybe this is the difference between people with, I don't know. Everyone's got a different sense of humor, but here he is telling the story about something that happened at least a decade, if not more, ago.
Maybe really early having there and killed it. So I pulled over and I picked up the bear, put him in the back of my van because I was going to skin the bear. I shouldn't have known it was going to. And be frequently, and you can do that. New York City, you can go there tag for a good kill bear. So then we went walking and had bear. We had a really good day, and we went late. And the people really loved it. So we stayed late, and instead of going to let's just look at the city, and there was a dead Peter Luger snake. And at the end of the dinner, it went late, and I realized I couldn't go home. I had to go to the airport. And the bear was in my car, and I didn't want to leave the bear. Because that would have been bad. So then I thought, at that time, this was a little bit of the redneck in me. There had been a series of bicycle accidents in New York. They had just put in the big one. Some people, a couple of people, people bad. It was the press. So I thought, I wasn't drinking, of course, but people were drinking. They thought this was a good idea. I said, I my car that somebody asked me to get rid of. I said, let's go put the bear in Central Park and make it look like any place. Funny for people. So everybody thought that's a great idea. So we went and did that, and we thought it would be amusing for whoever found it or something. It was like, it was on every television station. It was the front page of every paper. And I turned on the TV, and there was like a mile of yellow tape, and there were 20 cop cars. There were helicopters flying over it. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do? And then they were There was some people on TV in tie-back suits with gloves on lifting up the bike. They're saying they're going to take this up to Albany to get fingerprinted. I was worried because prints were all over that bike. Luckily, the story died after a while. New Yorker somehow found out about it, and they're going to do a big article on me, and that's one of the articles. So they asked me, the fact checker said, it's going to be a bad story.
All right, so there's RFK Jr. And I know because of his voice issue, some of that could be hard to track, but he's telling the story that evidently in New York, this had been a huge mystery for at least a decade, where these two women, they were walking their dogs and they found this dead bear with a bicycle on it. And what he's talking about, they had found it on the side of the road. He put it in his car. He was going to skin it, but then he went to dinner, and he had to go to the airport. The dinner went late. He didn't have time to take it to the house, so he didn't know what to do with it. Didn't want to leave it in his car in the airport for however long. And so that's when he claimed he was the only one not drinking. Everyone else was fueled by alcohol. I find that a little hard to believe. But that they thought because there had been all these bicycle accidents occurring, they thought it would be funny, or he did, to make it look like there was a bicycle accident with a bear and that it somehow killed the bear. And, they did this, and the next day he said there were helicopters flying over. There was, all these police cars. They sent the animal off to Albany in order to do essentially this biopsy, or to see if they could figure out what killed the bear, and they determined it was hit by a vehicle, and they dusted the bike for prints, and it was this huge mystery that evidently was surrounding this bear in Central Park for a decade or more. And this is him telling the story that it was actually him that put it. And I don't know why this is. Apparently some people are expecting this, as he is, to be something that's very damaging to his campaign or to his image, but I happen to think that it was pretty clever and funny. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Spoke with, we're going to chat with Will Scharf coming up here in just a couple of moments. He's running for Attorney General. We talked with Bill Eigel earlier this morning, And by the way, you are posting a lot of these interviews we've done in the past on
Yeah,
our social
since
media. Is that
tomorrow's
correct?
election day, I'm going to post as many interviews that I can possibly find of just different candidates. So if you're looking to hear some last minute interviews, just check out our social media. They're going to be posted throughout the day. So just keep checking back often.
I had referenced there was a battleground poll that was published in Missouri Scout, and it indicated a tie on a gubernatorial level between Ashcroft and Kehoe, and then quite a bit behind, and I forget the exact numbers. Actually, I have them right in front of me. So that had Ashcroft and Kehoe tied at 26%, and then Eigel was at 17%. But there has been another poll that was taken place, or that took place last week for over 3 days, tracking polls, and it shows Kehoe at 31, Eigel at 28, and then Ashcroft at 23. Now, I've had, as I mentioned, numerous conversations with people that are very concerned about Tax Hike Mike getting the nomination and then becoming governor. And so they are at the point where they're wanting to strategically vote that, they may like Eigel more than Ashcroft or Ashcroft more than Eigel, but they're very fearful of Kehoe getting in there, even though Kehoe, his campaign claims he's going to get rid of the state income tax. But they're very concerned about it. Conservatives are. And so at this point, they're more concerned about beating him. They're good with either one of those candidates, Ashcroft or Eigel. And not because it's just not Kehoe, but they feel that, they're both relatively conservative. But these, in terms of what is the answer, if that is how you're voting, I don't have an answer, because the different polling outfits all show something different. Some do show Eigel much closer to Kehoe. Some show that Ashcroft is tied with Kehoe. So I don't know. I suppose in that situation, if you're unable to determine which of those two individual getting your vote will make more of a difference, you could just do the good old-fashioned thing and vote for whomever it is that you think would be best as governor. Springfield's Talk 1041. Will Scharf coming up. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we have sunny skies with a high near 95. Tonight, clear with a low around 71. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 99. Heat index values reaching 104. Whew. And Wednesday, sunny with a high near 91.
Tuesday, of course, well, tomorrow, we will have the open phone line starting at 6:30. So we'll open those phone lines. It's going to be all you, letting people know for whom you want to vote. Of course, one of those that is really potentially going to be down to the wire. We've been talking about the gubernatorial race as different polls show different things. And people, a lot of conservatives are trying to figure out which candidate is most likely going to beat Mike Kehoe. There, of course, is also, we've got a whole slate of candidates on the ballot. So sample ballots we have at KSGF.com, and that is sponsored by Brad Pistol and Safe Money Radio. The Attorney General race, one that is being closely watched. Will Scharf is a candidate that you will find on the ballot. He joins us this morning, and it's good to have you. I appreciate you being with us this morning, and 24 hours and less than that, people are going to be, casting those ballots. Some obviously already have, but for the majority of people who haven't, what's your message to them today?
Yeah, look, if you think that Jefferson City is doing a great job, if you're really happy with the political establishment in this state, our campaign's probably not right for you. But if you're ready to shake it up, if you're ready to put a conservative outsider into the AG's office who's going to do things like investigate the State Department of Education, does he work to clean up our streets with violent crime, protect our rights in courtrooms across America? I mean, I know what it takes to get the job done, and I'm going to get it done. And I'd be honored to have the support of really all your listeners.
The theme, it seems, the theme of the campaign ads against you is outsider New York liberal that worked for Joe Biden. What do you say to those accusations?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolute garbage. As you know, I've spent basically my whole adult life in Missouri. Bailey wasn't born in Missouri either. They can't attack me on my record because my record is of achieving pretty amazing things for the conservative movement, whether it's defending President Trump in court, whether it's confirming Trump's Supreme Court justices during the last administration. So instead, they just sort of level these baseless personal attacks on me. It's really disappointing. We focused on Andrew Bailey's record. We've talked about the fact that he took money from Pfizer instead of investigating Pfizer. We've talked about the fact that he's a weak-on-crime prosecutor. He's fed into the whole catch-and-release system that's really bedeviling our streets. I mean, we've talked about corruption in that office. We've talked about aspects of Andrew Bailey's record. He's just sort of throwing mud, and that's really disappointing to me.
Is there any one particular case or something that should be a case you feel that the office currently is really missing the boat on? In other words, if you were in there, you'd be like, this would be a priority. I can't believe it's not being dealt with.
Well, I think Pfizer is a great example. There are a bunch of conservative states like Texas and Florida and Kansas that have sued Pfizer over vaccine fraud. I'm currently representing the state of Kansas in their lawsuit against Pfizer for vaccine fraud. Conservative grassroots groups asked Bailey to investigate the Pfizer vaccine, all the lies and misrepresentations they made. Bailey turned around, took money from Pfizer, took money from their lobbyists, and now is being supported by a PAC that a lot of people are saying is being funded by Pfizer. So to me, that's just pay-for-play corruption, and that's just wrong. But that office has lost a ton of cases on the Second Amendment. They've lost cases to Planned Parenthood. They've lost cases on the transgender issues. I mean, this is an office that has a culture of losing. We need to turn that around.
I know, obviously, we have you on, as we have in the past, to talk about your race, but I'm curious if you don't mind, just your thoughts on how things are progressing on a national level. Of course, we've seen the Democrats overturn 50 elections in which Joe Biden was selected by Democrat voters, the anointing of Kamala Harris. They aren't even going to allow any challenges at the convention itself, doing an early roll call vote. What's your just sense of, it's very unprecedented the way that Democrats, the defenders of democracy, are defining democracy now with their anointments here. How do you feel, your thoughts on the whole presidential race?
Yeah, I mean, the left doesn't actually care about any of the principles it pretends to espouse. They don't actually care about democracy or our Constitution or any of that. The only thing they care about is holding on to power. So as soon as Joe Biden became an irretrievable liability for them, they pushed him to the side and they promoted Kamala. Now, a lot of people are worried because Kamala is doing better in the polls than Joe Biden was, and the press seemed to be protecting her, and things are going better for her than they were going for Joe. But I promise you, as we get deeper into this campaign and she's out on the trail, this is a person who can't help herself from saying the dumbest stuff imaginable. I believe that Trump's going to win in a romp in November. I think it's going to be fun, and hopefully he carries a lot of good conservatives with him. We're going to need all the help we can get cleaning up our Capitol.
Will Scharf with us, running for Attorney General. He will be on the ballot. He is on the ballot. One of the options you'll have.
First on the ballot.
First on the ballot. We have those sample ballots at ksgf.com for people to check out. Just as, again, this is the final stretch. People are going to be casting their ballots tomorrow. Final thoughts that you have for the voters as they make those decisions tomorrow.
Yeah, I would just say, if you're happy with Jefferson City, if you think Jefferson City's representing you well, I'm not the right candidate for you. But if you're ready to really turn things around in our state's capital, if you want a government that's more responsive to the people of Missouri, that's going to be protecting your rights first and foremost, not the rights of special interests and lobbyists and political insiders, then our campaign is definitely right for you. I've won at the highest levels for President Trump, for the conservative movement, repeatedly in my career. I know how to build teams of lawyers that are going to be able to effectively defend your rights in courtrooms from here in Missouri all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. We're ready to do this. We're on the 5-yard line. We just need to run the ball home now.
Will Scharf, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
You bet. Springfield Talk 1041. I am Nick Reed. Byron Donalds blasting ABC News' George Stephanopoulos for his meltdown on live TV. There are many people that are beginning to question whether or not George Stephanopoulos needs to just not be covering any of this stuff. I mean, the media clearly is a propaganda wing of the Democrat Party. There's no question about that. But his increasingly hostile way of interrogating those that are not lapdogs of the administration or demonstrating that he just doesn't even have the temperament to pretend as if he's objective. And this first was noticeable when he was interrogating, I believe it was Nancy Mace on air, who was a rape victim, and falsely claiming that Donald Trump, Stephanopoulos, falsely claiming Donald Trump was convicted of rape, which is absolutely not true. On the little form where it says rape, they said no, not guilty. The jury. There is still a lawsuit underway. ABC News tried to get that lawsuit kicked, but a judge said no, it can move forward regarding the false allegation that Trump was convicted of rape, but then spent like 5 minutes grilling the Congresswoman, as a rape victim, saying, how can you support Donald Trump as a rape victim? The interview or interrogation with Byron Donalds show this unhinged reaction once again, in which he constantly, of course, they're bringing up this deal Trump talked about where he noted that Kamala Harris, once upon a time was declaring herself to be an Indian American, and then conveniently at other times, coincidentally, when it may benefit her, she describes herself as African American. It is interesting that she never really labeled herself as, or not African American, I should say black. I don't think she's ever claimed to be African American. Father is from Jamaica, mother from India, but I don't know that she's ever just really said, "Oh, I'm, Jamaican Indian American." It does seem as if she strategically labels herself, and some people, listen, let's not pretend that in politics that doesn't happen. You cater to the audience. If you're speaking to a bunch of farmers, you talk about your farming background. If you're speaking to a bunch of tech people, you talk about if you have tech background, whatever it might be. And so this isn't anything unusual. But at the same time, if you are the one who if you are putting that out there as part of a campaign, then you are the one putting it out there. This is one of the reasons that a lot of people find themselves veering away from LGBTQ plus or people of color who run for office as Democrats, because you are not allowed to question anything. Kamala Harris and the media has long played up her ethnicity, her race. This is something that the media has done. The AP for the longest time, she's the first Indian American this, the first Indian American that, and so forth. So as usual, what happens is the left wants to take a component of what they see as significant with Kamala Harris. They want to use it for political purposes, but then if somebody pushes back and fairly references it in a political context, they want to pitch a fit about it. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? Now, don't get me wrong. I think that this is a beneficial distraction for Kamala Harris, because the more that people like George Stephanopoulos are losing their crap over, this whole what Trump said, and referring to it as a slur now, the less they're talking about Kamala Harris, which is part of their goal. It's all distraction. They're like magicians, illusionists. CNN aired a bit of audio from a barbershop somewhere in which you had a bunch of black men sitting around. And this is how that conversation went.
Is Kamala going to make you a little more likely or less likely to vote Democrat?
Hold on, wait, first, Ray, hold on, Ray. Is Kamala black? Yes or no? I'm going to let her speak on that. But to me, no. Oh. Is Kamala black? Yes or no? I share that same view. Wow. Is Kamala black? Yes or no?
I heard she was half black and half Asian.
All right, so here you've got CNN, and they're talking with these black men at a barber shop, and is this going to in any way, shape, or form influence your decision? And the first question one of them asks is, wait, and he's asking the others, do you think she's black? And none of them think that she's actually black. They don't consider her to be black. It's pretty interesting that you've got the left, you've got Stephanopoulos, in which they are acting as if questioning her portrayal of herself and what her background is in terms of race is something that is so horrifically beyond the scale of decency that it requires people like George Stephanopoulos to berate a black man, by the way, Byron Donalds, a black man. Here you've got the rich elite white guy telling a black man, how dare you question a woman's race. Then you've got CNN talking to a bunch of black men in a barber shop, none of which view her as being black. And to some degree, it does make one wonder if this position that the Democrats are taking, that they want to make a battle over this, is it really going to help the Democrats when it comes to the black vote? Now, again, I don't think ultimately this is a good fight to be having, because it's portraying her as a victim, and it's not talking about all of the things that she's done, and it's not, what has she done? It's not talking about her failures. We're not talking about how radical she is. We're not talking about how she was against fracking before she was for fracking, how she was against or for giving illegal aliens free medical care before she was against. I mean, just, all of these different issues in which she's taken different stances on. And it's clear that is the goal of the left. It is to protect her by distracting with this. But I think at the same time, what they're hoping is that that distraction is going to somehow turn what black vote there has been for Donald Trump, and that support that has slowly but surely been increasing to historic heights, which isn't a majority, but it's still much more than Republicans had ever even hoped of getting, if in fact this isn't going to hurt him in that capacity. Maybe even help him a little bit, particularly amongst black men who don't necessarily like rich white liberals telling them who's black and who isn't. And by the way, I'll note again, for people like George Stephanopoulos, the fact that they were all perfectly okay with Joe Biden declaring that black people ain't black unless they support him, that somehow that comment was okay. But Donald Trump noting that Kamala, accurately so, describes her race different based on the audience, is somehow beyond the pale. Fake outrage. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. So while the white rich liberal George Stephanopoulos is lecturing a black member of Congress over his questioning of Kamala Harris's race, you had a rally in Atlanta, Georgia, Saturday, one of the speakers, a black woman by the name of Michaela Montgomery.
What has been done? See, steal your vote. The left is trying to tout this woman as a savior for the black community, but all she's done is hurt the black community since she came into the game. See, the first step in destroying the black community is to dismantle the black family. So aside from her record as a prosecutor, why don't we ask Mrs. Willie Brown if Kamala Harris cares about black families? Mrs. Willie Brown, a black woman, is also with her. Trump said he didn't know Vice President Harris was a black woman. I'm trying to figure out what all the outrage is about because she's only black when it's time to get elected. Did I lie? The same black people who are mad at Trump for being confused about her race, forgetting that while you're touting her as a savior for black people, she identifies as an Asian woman. She chose her side and it wasn't ours. When asked if she would ever do anything specifically for black people, she said no. Whereas Trump gave us the Platinum Plan, which specifically uplifted the black community by increasing capital by almost $500 billion.
All right, that is a rally Saturday in Atlanta, Georgia. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris on Saturday refused to debate former President Donald Trump on September 4th on Fox News, demanding the debate take place September 10th on ABC. You know, the network in which George Stephanopoulos is doing everything he possibly can in order to trash on Trump, trash on Republicans and Americans who support Trump, and do everything he can to get... Well, I wonder why she would want it to be on ABC. Political insiders perceive ABC News as an ally of the Democrat Party. I don't think this is how it's written up in Breitbart. I don't think that it really takes a political insider to recognize that ABC is an ally or a propagandist for Kamala Harris and the Democrat Party. Late Friday, Trump said he agreed to debate Harris on Fox News September 4th. Quote, the debate was previously scheduled against sleepy Joe Biden on ABC, but has been terminated in that Biden will no longer be a participant. The Fox News debate will be held in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania at a site in an area to be determined, he continued. The moderators of the debate will be Brett Baer and Martha McCallum, and the rules will be similar to the rules of my debate with Sleepy Joe, who has been treated horribly by his party, but with a full arena audience. So we've got a bit of a standoff here. Kamala wants it before ABC. Now, of course, the Democrats are going to say Fox News is frantic. Listen, Trump agreed to that first debate with essentially no conditions whatsoever. I'll do it whatever network, whatever rules. So it's not as if Donald Trump is insistent on only finding friendly venues. News in 60 seconds. The Situation Room, sometime, if it hasn't already happened this morning, Biden, so we're told, is going to be gathering other higher-ups in regards to what is expected to be an imminent attack from Iran against Israel. Netanyahu saying that he is expecting a multi-front war. Other reports are indicating that Israel may, if intelligence shows an attack is imminent, preemptively attack Iran. So there are a lot of questions up in the air. At the same time, Kamala Harris expected soon to announce her VP pick. And for Shapiro, for a lot of people, the favorite. They believe that he seems normal, that he doesn't come across as being the extreme kooky left that has come to define the Democrat Party. The problem is, because he's not anti-Semitic, he's actually Jewish, many Democrats are concerned about losing the anti-Semitic wing of their party. Feeding into this is a decades-old college paper that he wrote that is described as being disparaging against the Palestinian people, and in which he wrote of being an Israeli army volunteer. Now, as you can imagine, like most things with Democrats, they're explaining, no, it's not what you think. What he actually said then isn't what he means now. You have Shapiro's spokesman, Manuel Bonder, telling Fox News Digital, since he wrote this piece as a 20-year-old student, Governor Shapiro has built close, meaningful, informative relationships with many Muslim Americans, Arab Americans, Palestinian, Christian, and Jewish community leaders across Pennsylvania. The governor greatly values their perspective and the experiences he has learned from over the years, and as a result, as with many issues, his views on the Middle East have evolved into the position he holds today. Now, I would argue they've evolved in the wrong direction, because one of the things that he wrote about in the paper back when he was a 20-year-old, in which he apparently had a much greater understanding as to reality, is that the Palestinian people ultimately do not want a two-state solution. And they don't. We played audio from an influencer who went into Gaza to interview the average Palestinian person because he believed what he would find are reasonable individuals that wanted to coexist with the Israelis, with a two-state solution. And he found that nowhere. He was shocked. At one point, seeking out what he believed to be younger and more educated people who live in Gaza because they would be more enlightened, and he found that, no, they want Jews dead, want them dead. They do not want a two-state solution. They want a one-state solution, and that is with the state of Israel no longer existing. The Philadelphia Inquirer uncovered the essay that Shapiro wrote on the Campus Times, the student newspaper of the University of Rochester, when he was a graduate in 1995. In the article, he stressed his view that, quote, Palestinians will not peacefully coexist because they do not have the capabilities to establish their own homelands and make it successful even with the aid of Israel and the United States. They are too battle-minded to be able to establish a peaceful homeland on their own. Shapiro wrote, identifying himself as a past volunteer in the Israeli army. He referred to the Arab world as divided and belligerent. I don't think that the 20-year-old Shapiro, or however old he was at the time he wrote that, seemed to have a greater grasp on reality than he does today. So it's pretty appropriate that he feels in order to potentially become a vice presidential pick, they're cleaning up what they think is a mess, and that mess being him speaking or writing honestly about the situation in the Middle East. Shapiro's support for Israel and, Jews have been controversial inside the Democrat Party due to the strong pro-Palestinian view, a.k.a. anti-Semitic view, of the party's far-left flank. Those who oppose his candidacy launched the No Genocide Josh campaign and continue to pressure Harris to pick another running mate. So clearly this writing of his from 1995 doesn't help his cause within the Democrat Party anyhow. But who knows what they'll do. They're also now denying that, or essentially claiming that he was not telling the truth when he claimed in that piece that he was a volunteer in the Israeli army. He's for his two-state solution now. When asked, let's see, I forget how it was they twist themselves into rationalizing. So addressing the self-identification as a past volunteer in the Israeli army, a spokesperson said while he was in high school, Josh Shapiro was required to do a service project, which he and several classmates completed through a program that took them to a kibbutz in Israel, where he worked on a farm and at a fishery. The program also included volunteering on service projects on an Israeli army base. At no time was he engaged in any military activities. So, I mean, this is so typical with Democrats. Redefining everything. Is there any, and listen, I'm all for people evolving, people taking a position on something, but then as they grow and they learn about history and what does and doesn't work, changing their position based on seeking of the truth. But these Democrats, and Kamala Harris, he'd probably be perfect for this ticket. Everything he said in the past, just forget about it. He's taking the opposite position today, at least when it comes to Israel, apparently. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today, sunny with a high near 95. Tonight, clear skies with a low around 71. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 99. Heat index values reaching up to 104. And on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 91.
Congressman Burleson is with us this morning. Before we get to the latest developments, particularly regarding Israel, I'm sure that you saw where Nancy Pelosi declared that Joe Biden needs to be on Mount Rushmore. I mean, who could disagree with that?
Hyperbole, that's crazy. I can't think of a worse president. I think he will actually go down worse than any president in history.
I think that, I definitely worse
I think
Carter.
the only thing that he's going to have a good, sorry if I spoke over you.
No, you didn't.
The only thing I think that he's going to have that is any redeemable quality is that he stepped aside and he chose supposedly for the good of the country.
Yeah.
But in his note, he said it's for the good of the party. He stepped aside. That's the only thing that you can possibly point to and say, historically, that he did a good thing. Everything else was destroyed all of our lives for 4 years.
Yeah, well, there's that. Which, brings me to what is a real legitimate concern, the stories about, what is expected to be an imminent, perhaps full-scale attack from Iran, which we have made sure has a lot of money. That's a decision deliberately made by the Biden administration, which has enabled them to launch through Hamas the October 7th terrorist attack and to launch what could be a full-scale war. You've got Netanyahu saying that he is prepared for a multi-front war, reports that Israel may, if they have intelligence indicating that an imminent attack is to take place, that they may preemptively strike Iran. And then we hear that Biden's getting everybody together in the old Situation Room. I'm like, that guy? Or, I mean, are we still pretending? They forced the guy out. He's so out of it, and now we're gonna pretend that he's got this under control. Who's in charge? This is insane.
That's why I said he should have stepped. While I don't think it'd be good for us politically,
right,
and for Trump, I don't think he wants Kamala to be the president. I think that for the good of the country, he needs to step down. Because we're in dangerous waters these next few months. Everyone knows that we have our commander-in-chief is mentally not there, and so I think that these next few months will be the most dangerous months in America since World War II or since Civil War. I think you look around the world, we see flashpoints happening, potential flashpoints nearly, in Europe, in the Middle East, and then in Taiwan. It's really alarming.
How much of this do you think is because of the total and complete vacuum of leadership that exists now in the United States?
Yeah, I think it is because of the vacuum of leadership. So what we've been led by is apathy. So, Joe Biden, rather than having an energy policy that's beneficial for the United States, he, appeases the climate activists, and then suddenly we're now vulnerable to our enemies because of their energy production. Whenever Joe Biden appeases to the crazy radical left of the Democratic Party, because of Palestine, you've got the Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib crowd, and because he's wanting to appease them, here we are in a situation where we have daylight being presented between Israel and the United States, which only sends messages to Iran and its proxies that we're vulnerable, that we may not be so ardent in our support of Israel as we once were. All of this apathy and willingness to appease is the opposite of the Reagan era. Reagan was very clear that in fact, he gave a speech where he said, history tells us that appeasement is the path of appeasement is the greater risk. When you appease to these kind of tyrannical enemies, then we end up in a worse situation. And I think that Reagan was right. I think history shows that Reagan was right. And Joe Biden clearly didn't learn for lessons from that era.
We're talking with Congressman Burleson. The reports are that, quote, soon Kamala is going to announce her running mate. It seems as if, just in terms of talk and chatter and coverage, the two favorites would be Mark Kelly or Shapiro. The big concern that many Democrats have expressed with Shapiro is that he's Jewish, and given the significant anti-Semitic wing of the Democrat Party, it was revealed over the weekend as well that back in '95 he wrote a piece about how you cannot have a two-state solution, that the Palestinian people just as it exists in its capacity now and with all things considered, that they don't want a two-state solution. And of course, this is
which is 100% true.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, he was right then. Well, now, of course, now he's for a two-state solution, and I guess he feels that he has to be absolutely wrong in order to be considered for the ticket. Are you all hearing anything about who the potential pick is, or is it a mystery to everyone inside the Capitol as well?
I think it's a mystery. Everyone's, you guys have as much information as I have when it comes to this, but I think that it's interesting that the Democratic Party, that race is a factor in the selection of who the VP is going to be. It once again, here's a party that decries racism, and yet you couldn't have anything more blatantly racist than to say, blatant racism to say,
openly,
to really couch his race in the conversation, right? That would, to me, that's already, entering into racism. But then when you say, well, that's a hindrance, his race is a hindrance, that is absurd. I never thought that since World War II, that America would be having any kind, especially an official political party where people are openly talking about, expressing their anti-Semitism. It's crazy and appalling. But that's where we are today. We have hit Looney Tunes when it comes to world politics and the politics in America.
We are talking with Congressman Burleson. Of course, tomorrow in Missouri, people are going to be going to the polls. I know that on social media, you have weighed in on a couple of different races. Any thoughts you wanted to share with the listeners this morning about those elections tomorrow?
So I will say, I have a lot of friends that are running on all these statewide races, and people ask me all the time who to vote for.
Right.
The easy race to pick is the race for lieutenant governor, because you have such a huge, vast difference between David Wassinger, and I'm talking about the candidates that have a chance to win. Mm-hmm. You've got Wassinger, Lincoln Huff, Holly Rader. And you have Wassinger, who is checks all the boxes, Second Amendment, pro-life, conservative, small business owner. But then we know the record of Lincoln Huff, right. Okay? And we know the record of Holly Rader. And yet what's so funny, I think I'm watching these ads come through, and it's absurd that people, the level of lying about your record that's happening right now, and lying about your opponent is, I don't know that I remember it being this bad.
I agree.
Before. They lied about me. But usually it was some nugget of truth there.
Right.
But for example, you got, when Lincoln Huff says that he's conservative, by what measurement, right? I want to see a measurement there, because I don't think objectively, and I'm saying this to I would say this to his face. Objectively, tell me where you define yourself as conservative. And then when I would say this other attack that's happened, you have Mike Kehoe attacking Jay Ashcroft for voting for selling land to China. The guy didn't even vote. He wasn't even a member. He couldn't have, I don't know how you can even espouse that attack when It's not possible. And so to me, that's a blatant lie. And then the other day I got a text from his campaign saying that he was endorsed twice by Missouri Right to Life. What's not said in that text is that Missouri Right to Life did not endorse him this year. So that's, to me, it's misleading when you say,
absolutely.
you're trying to mislead everyone. But people need to know, look, if you want objectively to know who the good candidates are, when it comes to the governor's race, you got two good candidates. I have had a very hard time distinguishing between the two of them because I like them both, and I think that both of them will be transformative in a conservative way for Missouri. Now, they're both friends, and they don't like the fact that I like the other person as well, but that's just how life works, right? I sometimes am forced to pick between two people that I think are great. In one hand, you have Ashcroft, who is just, so for example, he's endorsed by Missouri Right to Life. We know the Ashcroft family in the name. It's a trusted family, and he's a great guy. Bill Eigel is also a great guy. I served with Bill Eigel. He is a fighter. You got Ashcroft, who is endorsed by Missouri Right to Life, but I would say Bill Eigel is just as pro-life, just knowing them. And then you've got Bill Eigel, who's pretty much endorsed by Missouri Firearms Coalition, although they don't endorse. So because of his record of fighting for the Second Amendment, and I would say, knowing Ashcroft, he's just as pro-Second Amendment. So to me, it's a hard, between those two, it's a hard decision. And I don't know, myself, I don't even know where I'm going to be when I go to the poll tomorrow. Down ticket from that, David Wassinger all the way. And then the other ones, you've got so many good candidates. You've got really good candidates in the Secretary of State race between Scholler and Hoskins. You've got great candidates in the treasurer race. I mean, the treasurer race, you could nearly pick anybody. They're all very, very good candidates, very conservative. In fact, I tried to get many of those candidates to get out of that race and get into another one, like the lieutenant governor race, where we could get a conservative, firebrand in that race. But they all stacked up in the treasurer's race. So that's what people email me and text me all the time. Who should I vote for? I'm just laying it out completely transparent to you, and knowing that I'm probably going to make some enemies in this conversation, but that's where I'm at.
All right. Well, next time we talk, these decisions should be made, barring anything real close, I suppose. Congressman Burleson, as always, it is a great pleasure. Appreciate your insight this morning.
Appreciate you, Nick.
All right, take care. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I am Nick Reed. KSGF.com. If you miss any of the show, the on-demand section, must-read headlines are there. Oftentimes, those must-read headlines, a lot of times you hear me talk about something that is referencing an article. That's where you can find those articles, because I know many times you reach out and you say, hey, wait, you link to that article. You can find most of that in the on-demand section. Also, right now, last chance to win Barry Manilow tickets. He is going to be at Great Southern Bank Arena Saturday, August 24th. Last chance to get signed up this week at ksgf.com to win a pair of tickets to see Barry Manilow.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 95. Tonight clear with a low around 71. For Tuesday, sunny with a high near 99. Heat index values reaching close to 104. And on Wednesday, sunny with a high near 91. The Pyramid Roofing Company, I spoke with Josh on Friday, and he really wanted to address the May storms that rolled through and damaged many areas across the listening area. When your roof begins to fail, whether it is from old age or storms, time is of the essence. If you have hail damage from those May storms, or you're not exactly sure, now is the time to call the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, most insurance companies, they do have a deadline for when you can file those claims, so don't wait. And if you need help walking through that insurance process, the Pyramid Roofing Company, they are going to help you every step of the way. They're great folks. Couldn't recommend them enough. If it is time to have the Pyramid Roofing Company out at your home, go ahead and give Josh and his team a call today. You can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
At every turn, it is almost amusing to watch the cult-like approach that the media, that everyone's taking for Kamala. I mean, it is North Korean style propaganda. There's a letter to the editor from the LA Times. A speaking coach's take on Kamala Harris. She's empathetic and strong. A speaking coach. You're talking about a woman who is known for word salads, and they find a speaking coach, somebody that this is their area of expertise, tell us what a wonderful speaker she is. She's so incredible. She's wonderful. These are all the same. I mean, not all of them, but let's not forget that it wasn't even a few months ago that Democrats were still talking about dropping her off the ticket because, among other things, she was a word salad factory. She came across as being a dingbat, as being an idiot. I mean, you have memes created because of the fact that she talks, but then at the end, you're bewildered. Like, what did she even just say? I don't even know. It was just a bunch of words tossed together as if they're a salad. And now we're being subject to speaking coaches, experts when it comes to communication, and the LA Times. Oh, she's just absolutely wonderful. Okay. In addition to that, the headlines today, you get a list of these has-been nobody Republicans that are coming out for Kamala Harris because they have no principles. I'm sorry. You cannot claim that you are a, quote, Republican, a party that is pro-life, that claims to be lower taxes, smaller government, strong borders, peace through strength, and support somebody like Kamala Harris. I don't care how much you hate Trump. You are not principled. It's just mind-boggling that these people that portray themselves as being so virtuous throw everything, they are willing to throw away everything that they claim is part of their belief system. We're also being told that this is unprecedented. This is also just, again, if these people had those little mind eraser wands that were in the Men in Black movies, they would be the happiest people on the planet, because what they are trying to do is that exact same thing. Erase your memories. This is a headline, and I mentioned the story or the situation itself earlier in a Newsweek piece, but here's an altnet, unprecedented launch of Republicans for Harris causes commotion. This is now you're supposed to believe that, one, because Trump is so bad, but also because Kamala Harris is so wonderful and unifying, that in an unprecedented move, you have a bunch of has-been Republicans, most of which you've never heard of, that are coming out against Donald Trump. This is not unprecedented. There has not been an election in which Donald Trump was running for president, be it a primary or even a general election, in which you did not have Republicans coming out and saying that they hated him so much they were going to support either Hillary Clinton or they were going to support Joe Biden. This is not unprecedented. This has been done before. We have been told all along, the entire Donald Trump journey, from coming down that escalator, there have been Republicans who said, I remember that they would vote for Hillary Clinton before they voted for Donald Trump. They would vote for Joe Biden before they voted for Donald Trump. Now they will vote for Kamala. But and this is the inability of the left to control their emotions. They want to portray this as unprecedented so that you feel as if, oh no, we're in uncharted waters here. You mean for the very first time things are so bad for Donald Trump that Republicans are saying that they may support his opponent? They've always said that. They're called establishment swamp. This is not unprecedented. This is not groundbreaking. This is more of the same. And frankly, it is a reflection of why, or evidence of why, so many people like Donald Trump. Because the swamp does not like him, Republican or Democrat. The people who see their jobs as telling us how to live our lives and ruling over us do not like somebody like Donald Trump, largely because he cannot be controlled. They hate that. And then you add on to the reasons that they give. Let's see if I can find the quote here. So a lot of what these anti-Trumpsters are claiming in order to justify abandoning all of their principles in order to support Kamala Harris is because, well, with Donald Trump in the White House, it's just total chaos. We need to have have we not heard that before? With the Biden-Harris campaign, that was largely what their campaign was built upon, that Donald Trump is chaotic. It's all okay. We need to have the adults back in the White House. We're talking about a White House in which they have like men who get breast implants running around topless in front of children on the White House lawn. That cocaine popping up in the White House, or is that the adults back in the White House that these never Trumper Republicans are looking for? Or the fact that dozens of times dogs were just allowed to attack employees, some of which were hospitalized? Is this what we're talking about? Hunter Biden being allowed to sit in on these meetings in which you have people not knowing who is even running things in the White House? Or the fact that 90+% of people who have worked for Kamala Harris have described it as so toxic and chaotic. These are Democrats, by the way, that they have jumped out. They've quit their post under her. This is what we're told is the administration that's going to really bring back the steady calmness that we all feel so comfortable with. I'll take Donald Trump's chaos over the Biden-Harris chaos that we have seen play out in this White House 1,000 times over. A lot of you, some of you, may, either if it's today, perhaps tomorrow, down the road, or you know someone who is looking to sell their home, and you know about all the updates you got to do. Don't do those updates until you have Emily Johnson House Theory Realty come do a walkthrough of your home. 20 years ago, there were these upgrades that were just conventional wisdom, upgrades that one needed to do in order to get more out of their home sale or to sell it more quickly. Some of that stuff just is not relevant today. There may be certain things that weren't relevant 20 years ago that are today. This is what Emily Johnson knows. So don't tell yourself, well, I want to at least fix this. This carpet is I'd be embarrassed to have her come look at my home and think that I thought that this was ready to be put on the market. No, don't. Don't do it. Just have her come first. Do not spend dime one without having that that consultation. She'll be more than willing to do it. She's fantastic. It's why so many people praise and recommend for all of your home buying needs, your home selling needs, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. I've noted on numerous occasions that Democrats have this inability to control their emotions. They have to overstate things. And the reason that they overstate things is, one, because they're controlled by their emotions, but they also feel that the audience that they're speaking to just won't get it. So they have to overstate things in order for you to appreciate the truth. A great example was recent, I mean, you could give dozens of them, but Adam Schiff claiming that no one in the history of this country has been more prepared to be president of the United States than Kamala Harris. That is absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd. You can believe that she'll be good at it. You could, but to make such an absurd claim demonstrates this inability that the left has to control their emotions. They cannot just be level about things. That demonstrated over the weekend when Leslie Stahl on CBS was interviewing Nancy Pelosi, and one of the questions that she asked was whether or not she noticed, and we all know the answer to these questions, but they get out, did you notice that something was a little off about Biden in those, these final days or weeks or just, in his time as this decline has been occurring? Is that something that you noticed?
No. My whole point was, whatever he decides, but we have to have a more aggressive campaign.
She mentioned his many accomplishments, including his forceful leadership of the NATO summit with other Western heads of state.
So he was in a good place to make whatever decision, the top of his game. Such a consequential president of the United States, a Mount Rushmore kind of president of the United States. Want to know what comes next?
That he belongs up there on Mount Rushmore, Lincoln and Joe Biden.
But you got Teddy Roosevelt up there, and he's wonderful. I don't say take him down, but you can add Biden.
All right. So, first off, why did the way she pointed out, well, you've got Teddy Roosevelt up there, that would be, okay. What does that have to do with anything? I mean, yeah. I mean, there's 4 of them up there. It was just such a weird point to make. What Teddy Roosevelt? Okay, because they'd be around the same age if Teddy Roosevelt were still alive. Is that the point that you're making here? But just from that one clip, 2 demonstrations of the inability of Democrats to approach things intellectually instead of being emotionally driven. One, making again the absurd claim that he was top of his game. He's been top of his game even within the last several weeks or couple months with the NATO summit that took place. This is the one where he's with a parachuter, he got distracted and where he had to be led around. That he was top of his game. Everyone knows that's not true. But then to claim that he should be on Mount Rushmore, what are you insane? And what is unsettling about these claims is that they don't get rejected by a certain segment of their voting population because they're obedient, hence their ability to overturn all of the elections for Joe Biden, 50 separate elections that money was spent on, blood, sweat, tears was spent on, and then they just up and decided, because you listen to Nancy Pelosi here, and the reason he was forced to step down wasn't because of mental acuity issues. She said, oh, I never saw any of that. So that means that those elections were overturned, if you are to take her at her word here, because they were afraid that he was going to lose. For political purposes, overturning 50 elections. And then, of course, in addition to that, rigging the convention process so that nobody can challenge Kamala at the actual convention, doing it virtually ahead of time. I don't even understand why Democrats have elections anymore. What is the point? To pretend? So that if Democrats choose correctly, they'll let you pretend as if your vote actually matters, that, quote, democracy is important. But the moment they've decided, in retrospect, you chose poorly, so we're just going to undo those elections. While all the time trying to throw Trump in prison, claiming that he was trying to undo an election. As usual, what's good for them, not for everyone else. Joe Biden. Have his face up there on Mount Road. You've got a depiction of that, did you say, on the
yeah, KSGF.com. Must read headlines.
All right.
It's a very poor edit.
Check. Yeah.
Didn't have a lot of time this morning.
Is he looking confused?
Yes.
Where am I? Why am I up
here? I picked the photo from the debate where he's like looking over, just very confused. It's very fitting.
Yeah, it's a good summation of the presidency thus far. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Bulgarian Olympic boxer Svetlana Staneva appeared to add fuel to the gender eligibility firestorm on Sunday after she was pummeled and lost to Taiwan's Lin Yu-ting in the women's 57-kilogram division. Lost to Levi unanimous decision. Lin was moved to the semifinals, guaranteed at least a bronze medal in the Paris Olympics. This is the whole gender eligibility, man-woman deal. The woman, the full woman, who lost made an X symbol after the loss in her fight, signaling double X to show that she has XX chromosomes, signifying that she's a woman as opposed to the opponent. Meanwhile, the Italian boxer that got pummeled by the other boxer with male chromosomes, and this is what really first brought attention to the whole situation. 46 seconds, had to bow out just because of a couple punches and realizing there's no way I can take this guy on. Apologized for her behavior, and apologizes for creating any sort of controversy around her opponent, which she is now referring to as a she. And this is unfortunately a character trait we see with women who get beat by men. In the moment, they note the truth of the matter, but then they end up apologizing. It was my fault. I shouldn't have done it. And apparently that is the toxic relationship that exists here as well. Now, whether it was somebody got to her and said, you better shut your mouth, woman, because There's a hierarchy here, and you ain't at the top. Or, like, again, unfortunately, so many people in those positions find themselves where in the moment their raw emotional response is an accurate one, but then they end up apologizing for being a victim, which is what, unfortunately, she has now done. Tomorrow, starting at 6:30, the phone lines will be open for you to call in. Delta Roofing sponsoring the day full of your calls on Election Day. Glenn Beck's coming up next. I'm Nick Reed.